Hello and welcome back to the Web Canopy Studio Show. I'm your host, Tom Andrews, and today you're going to find out how to vet a HubSpot agency. Let's begin. Elizabeth, welcome back to the show again. You're becoming a regular feature, which I'm sure the watchers and the listeners absolutely love. And today we're going to talk about how to vet a HubSpot agency, because a lot of businesses, they'll look at HubSpot and they'll think, do you know what? I want to use HubSpot. We want to use HubSpot, but maybe we don't have the time. It's a steep learning curve for us. We don't have an expert on the team, or maybe we're interested in bringing an expert on, but A, we don't really know how to vet that expert individual. And B, if you're going to bring in a true expert, that's a lot of money just to put on like one full-time salary. So a lot of companies will be thinking, okay, we're going to outsource our HubSpot operations to an agency. And when I say operations, it could be anything. It could be like a whole HubSpot migration, for example, or it could be working on a much smaller, like piecemeal project. Maybe you're figuring out how to learn something for your own team and therefore want a bit of coaching from a HubSpot agency. Whatever it is, there's a wide range of services you can get, and a wide range of services we offer, and a wide range of services other HubSpot agencies offer. But how do you vet for the right one? Elizabeth, over to you.
Yeah, that's a great question, because as you know, there's a ton of them out there, right? And they all do similar things. They all do different things. They all have niche. They all, there's a lot of them that can do a number of different things, right? And so like before I started working at Web Canopy, I actually was obviously a different job, right? We're adults with jobs. And we were already using HubSpot for marketing efforts. So like emails, landing pages, blog, thing like that. And then we decided, you know what, we're going to move from Salesforce to HubSpot. And that was one of the projects that we had. But like when we were looking for someone to help with that, like it's like, where do you start? You know what I mean? Where do you start? And so definitely looking through the ecosystem at HubSpot, right? To see, who's there, what they do, what they offer. Check out their websites, right? Go to their LinkedIn profiles. This is one time where Facebook and LinkedIn stalking is a good thing. Go see what they're putting out. You know what I mean? I wouldn't necessarily count on vanity metrics. You know what I mean? Like likes and shares and things like that. But are they pushing out good content? Are they active? And then if you're able, check out some of their resources, like a pre-recorded webinar or a masterclass, or to see what the content is. You know what I mean? And then figure out, based on their profile, is this an agency that is like an expert in what I want to do? So have they ever handled a Salesforce to HubSpot migration? I'm not saying that that doesn't mean a newbie couldn't do it, but that's a big deal. I've led a lot of those and there's a lot of things to consider and things that could easily be missed, especially if you got, a new agency. Again, not bad, but if you have someone with experience, someone with, the expertise and the staff to move that data, or to leverage the integration, you know what I mean? You'll just have a better outcome. But the other thing too, Tom, I think is personality, right? The biggest thing for me, you want them to be experts in the field, but you also want to be able to trust them and then view them as a partner, not just a contracted worker for a short amount of time. They have to be an extension of your team. And by that, a culture fit. I know that's a weird thing to say, but if you're not going to get along with them, it's just going to make it difficult and challenging, so.
On that note, say, again, we'll use a migration example.
Yeah.
Like you said. In terms of the actual day-to-day, the way it will look on a day-to-day basis, where you're saying it has to be a good culture fit, what does the day-to-day basis generally look like? Say, from our point of view, from Web Canopy's point of view, we have a client. What will we be doing, or what will you specifically be doing, since you work on that client side? What will you be doing day-to-day with the client? And I'm asking you this question, Elizabeth, just because I want the listeners and viewers just to really get an idea as to what it would look like working with an agency. Because a lot of people might think, okay, maybe we're chatting to the agency every single day, or maybe other companies might think, oh, actually, we don't want to chat to the agency at all, and they're just going to do it all. So generally, what should a good partnership look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there's a few non-negotiables, in my opinion, that need to happen. And that's an agreement that the client does their work on time and then the agency does their work on time, right?
Yep.
Personally, I think the agency should be flexible to the communication style of the client, because let's be honest, if it's a 3-month, like a website migration, and you're doing a 3-month contract and you're not using, Slack or some other system, you don't want to learn a whole nother system and add something else to your tech stack just for that, engagement, right? Yep. So if the agency is flexible to, kind of, what do you want to like morph or, kind of go with the flow, so to speak, on what the client prefers for communication and tasking. And then obviously use those internal systems to keep everything on track. That's great. And I know, like, for my accounts at Web Canopy, I definitely adapt to whatever that client needs for communication. Some of them need a lot more, others a heck of a lot less. Like, I have a couple that I think if I never communicated with them, it would be fine. I know that's a weird thing to say. Yeah. Like, I could send them an email thumbs up and they'd be like, cool. And I think it all comes down to trust. And then also, I don't want to say the severity. What's the word I'm looking for?
Urgency? Like
the type of project. Yeah, maybe urgency is a good word. Because it tends to be like there's more communication if there's a deadline, right? Like your Salesforce contract is ending, or Pipedrive or something like that. Obviously, there's a date in mind, and you need to make sure you have all that data moved from one platform to another. So that's mission critical. But if it's something ongoing, like SEO, for example, like, yes, you want to pump out new content, but that obviously isn't the same type of important as moving your entire system from one platform into HubSpot. So does that answer the question?
Absolutely, perfectly. And I love the fact that we, or you specifically, and the other account managers here are so flexible with clients. Have you heard any stories, obviously don't mention names, of maybe other HubSpot agencies not being as flexible? Or generally, will most HubSpot agencies be quite flexible on that front?
I don't know that I've heard anything specific about other HubSpot agencies, but I have worked with other agencies in the past, and it's been a real mixed bag, right? I think what tends to happen, especially on the marketing side, and I'm just going to be brutally honest, is they promise the moon and then it's never delivered. You know what I mean? Like, they'll do a persona workshop, but it's all that superficial stuff, like the name and demographic and stuff like that. Like, that's cool, but we need to dig into the psychology in order to get to the target audience.
That annoys me. Like, when that is the like, they say we're doing this, but then they spend so much time on that real surface level stuff, and then they're like, oh yeah, well, like, this is really important. And it's like, well, it is if you do it properly, but this isn't proper. And like, years ago, this was probably going back to 2018 sort of time, I had a personal trainer client. I was a copywriter, and well, he was more of an online fitness guy, and he paid a guy, I think it was like something ridiculous, like 10K for, and by the way, this isn't an agency, like, this isn't a company, this was just one guy, and he paid a guy 10K for what's the word, like, mentorship for, like, it wasn't that long either. And I guess 10K is not a ridiculous amount if it's good, but he was like telling me, like, when he did it, he was like fuming with this guy because literally the main part of it was exactly what you just said there, Elizabeth. And I think that's a major red flag. And I think not just with that specific thing, but I think when you do work with an agency, you should actually ask them very early on, before you sign any agreements. Like, I mean, in fact, in one of your first conversations with them, what exactly is included here? And of course, if it's a massive project, things might change during it. The scope may or may not change depending on how you're working with that, and if you're going to follow what's in writing. Like, that's obviously up to you and the agency. But generally speaking, I would recommend asking, okay, what exactly is included? What does this workshop look like? What sort of things are entailed? Just because it just saves you a lot of disappointment further along the road. Talking of scope, Elizabeth, when it comes to sort of individual projects, do we, and for the record, like listeners and viewers, I don't work client side. I work I do the marketing for our agency, so I don't actually know exactly what it looks like client side. So I'm learning some really cool things here as well from Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, when we are chatting to a potential new client, will we go into depth about what the scope looks like on a very detailed level, or will it generally be a bit more high level? I just want to paint a picture to what it could look like for somebody interested in working with us or another agency.
Yeah, I mean, we will oftentimes do like a reverse demo on the sales call to get a really good, like the sales, like a migration is a great example, because what usually happens is you, Tom, know what your process is and you're explaining the process, but saying and doing are two different things. So there may be a couple steps that you do that are just muscle memory to you. So you don't think to include it. But then when we do the reverse demo, we can see, okay, like this is something that would work really great in HubSpot, or you know what, this is a roadblock. This is a limitation HubSpot can't do. So we're either going to have to move the process, you know what I mean? Fix it, do something different, and then go from there. So usually with the scopes, it's not super specific, because we want a little bit of, room to flex and then create opportunity, right, to improve processes and move things into HubSpot. Because I think red flag number one is when someone says, I can recreate your Salesforce process verbatim in HubSpot, or whatever it is, whatever platform, Monday, whatever. Everybody, that's not possible. They are two completely different platforms. They have different functionality, different strengths, weaknesses, things like that. So if you're expecting a carbon copy, it might be possible, but it's probably not possible. You know what I mean? And if the agency promises you a carbon copy, in my opinion, I think that's obviously there's instances where you could do something like that, right? But a lot of times there's going to be something that either needs to be negotiated or improved or done a different way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
And I think it's really valuable. That's why that trust and that relationship really needs to be started up front with workshops and understanding the business, like for your client, to gain that trust. And then, because what you're really looking for is an expert, right? And so when you're coming to me, it's like, all right, we can do that, but what if we did this instead? You know what I mean?
Or what you said there about the red flag being, okay, we can do this, we can migrate it so it looks exactly as your Salesforce did. On a similar note, where we're talking about giving, okay, we'll be able to do 100% do this for you, but they can't. Do you feel that should be a red flag across the board? So, for example, if it's a marketing agency, for example, if they say, we guarantee we're going to deliver this result for you, and when they say guarantee, it's not backed by a money back guarantee, they're just saying they'll do that. Do you think that is potentially a red flag? Because it can be very hard, and like from a marketing point of view, to say we are definitely going to achieve this result. In fact, saying that is almost impossible. I like to look at it like, okay, we promise we're going to do this for you, this for you, this for you, this for you, and hopefully that will then result in this, or hopefully even more for you. But my alarm bells go off if I hear people say, oh, we're like, you do this, you're 100% getting this. Unless it's like a case of don't pay until you get this result. That's fair, but most agencies don't do that. Right. So is that something you see?
And it depends on the deliverable. Like if it's like, we guarantee 4 blogs a month, that's something you can do, right? Yeah. That's sure. But if you say, I guarantee each blog will have 100 blog views a week, I don't know how you can do that without telling people to go read the blog.
So essentially it's promising the process, but not promising the outcome.
Correct. Yeah.
And do you find a lot of agencies do actually promise that outcome just to get that client, even though they can't actually, like, quote unquote, promise anything?
I'm not sure on like I don't want to call them vanity metrics, but like vanity metrics like that. Yeah. But like I think what usually happens is an increase, like it's generic. Does that make sense? Where it's like, we promise an increase. Okay, cool. If it's an increase of, 10%, sometimes that's impressive, but other times it's not based on the math. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so if they say they're going to promise a 10% increase in, MQLs or whatever per month, if you're only getting 10, that's not super impressive. But if you're getting 10 million, that's really impressive. So it's, I don't know. I feel like it's relative and it's subjective too, which makes it a hard question to answer. But I think the most important thing is for the agency, once they do a marketing campaign or they implemented a sales process or something like that, that they watch HubSpot to see the data, to see the analytics, and that they have a plan to be proactive in mind in case something does fail or it's not performing as it should, or you know what I mean? Like they can identify the points to pivot and then
that's cool.
Go that way instead. And that they're not going to recommend something to you that is completely off base. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's A/B test 2 landing pages, but we're going to change everything on page B. Well, if you do that, you're not going to know what worked if everything's pointless. Completely different, right? So have that goal in mind. I think that's the most important.
And that sounded vital there, what you were saying about essentially being able to adapt. Okay, if this isn't working, this is what we're going to do. Do you feel somebody looking to bring an agency on board or looking to partner with an agency, do you feel that is a question they should ask? What happens if it's not achieving this result? What will you do about it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, somebody that's willing to think outside the box and go, okay, well, if you need more leads, right? Let's do that. We can do that, but let's look at the other symptoms first that are going on, because sure, you can pump out a webinar, you know what I mean, and send out emails. But if you only have 100 people that you can email, you're not going to get the results you want. So the issue isn't necessarily the list or the content. It's that I need to get more traffic to my site, right? So let's start there. Let's fix SEO issues, right? Let's do the unsexy work under the hood. You know what I mean? Fix things, fix pages, and then increase traffic to then hopefully get more leads, you know what I mean? And traffic to your site to push that content out and then increase, MQLs that way, if that makes sense. Because if it's pointless to put a beautiful campaign out there when you don't have any social media audience, right? You have a very small email list. Mm-hmm. Nobody comes to visit your website. It's just going to sit there. You've got to do something with it. And that's where you want your agency to think outside the box and be creative and not just plug and play. Like, sure, it's a recipe, but you need to adapt. It shouldn't be a baking one. It should be a cooking one. You know what I mean? Where you can kind of,
I love that.
Kind of go with the flow.
That's fantastic. And you've given some really great answers here. And I think you're just going to provide a lot of clarity to people who are debating whether to work with an agency, or maybe they've already decided they're going to, but just deciding which one. Finally, would you say there is, well, let me rephrase that. If there was one question that you would recommend somebody listening to this who is going to chat to a potential agency partner, that they should ask them just to vet them, what would that one question be?
That's such a great question, Tom. I'd have to think, but my initial reaction is, tell me a time you failed and how you handled it. Like, what did you do?
I like that. Yeah.
I like that. Because I've worked with agencies in the past, right? Like, I get that I work for an agency now, but I've worked with other agencies before. And I remember one time, it was brand new to my employer at the time, doing marketing campaigns and things like that. And we thought we understood our target audience, right? So that's the key right here. We thought we did. So we put out this webinar, we sent out emails, nobody signed up. Nobody showed up to the webinar. It was an epic failure, right? And that's frustrating because you're paying an agency, right? You want people to show up for the webinar and all that stuff. But in reality, the failure actually is the best teacher, right? Like, you're not going to learn anything if you're always successful. You need to fail. And what we learned was we were going after the wrong freaking people. it wasn't, it was obviously the subject, right? But we were telling the story in the wrong way. And we had the wrong topic, like just in general. Because once we pivoted, we were able to get people up, you know, coming to the webinar, engaging with emails and things like that. So it's taking the failures and using it as a learning opportunity is super valuable, you know. And I think if the agency is open and honest, like you don't have to give details, like I didn't give specifics just now, but if you at least share, like, yeah, we saw it wasn't working, we decided to push forward because you know, people, they just show up sometimes, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, you don't want to cancel it. You want to wait and see if somebody signed up. I think we had 5, right? It wasn't worth it, to be honest, but we were just thrilled to have 5. Nobody showed up, whatever. But instead of, I mean, it was frustrating and a little defeating, but that's when you just kind of pull yourself up, put yourself together, and then think, all right, that was obviously wrong on many levels. Let's pivot.
And that's really good as well. And if an agency can answer that question well, not only does it show what they potentially plan on doing with you, if in the worst case it doesn't work out, to make sure that long term it does, but also it does show that they're just honest as well, because it can be quite hard admitting where you haven't done well in the past, or admitting your failures. As a human, that's a natural thing we like to avoid, isn't it? We like to put our best foot forward to people. So just by showing that bit of vulnerability and admitting that, okay, we're not always perfect, but this is what we do about it, just paints you, like you said earlier, as somebody you'd actually want to work with. Someone who doesn't have this ridiculous ego, someone who's like open to like improving all the time. And I think that is really important. So yeah, hopefully we've given you some really good ideas about how you can successfully vet a HubSpot agency. If you'd like to work with us, I mean, in our slightly biased opinion, obviously, we are a very, very good agency. I mean, you'll be working with people like Elizabeth and our other fantastic team members. So if you are interested in just having a chat to see if we are a good fit, then what we're going to do, we're just going to leave one of our team members' calendar links in the show notes. So yeah, book a call, just have a chat. Like, we're very anti like hardcore sales here. Like John, our CEO, is just like massively anti any of that stuff. I remember one time I wrote an email sequence, and like we had like, you always want to put a bit of scarcity in the last email just to try and make people take action. And John was like, no, this is way too like aggressive. Like even if we lose people, just keep it chill. So yeah, we are like, our whole philosophy is just, we are very chill. So yeah, have a chat with us. Let's see if we're a good fit. And if we are, then yeah, fantastic. And hopefully look forward to welcoming you aboard. Thank you.